Hey everybody, my name is Tristan Crawford. Today I'm going to be teaching you about a little virus called Epstein Barr, or herpes virus number 4.
Herpes? I thought that was like something that messes with your coochie.
You're thinking about genital herpes. This is a different kind of herpes. In fact, there's actually over 130 different types of herpes virus.
Isn't that like that thing you get when you kiss someone?
You indeed are correct. This is sometimes known as the kissing virus. It's called this because this pathogen is passed from one person to another via bodily fluids, the main one being saliva. So this can happen when two teenagers, two kids, two adults are either kissing or sharing drinks or anything where their saliva might get mixed around. It's interesting to note, however, that in children and infants, symptoms don't really ever show. It's kind of hard to tell between either a childhood illness or mono. Although, however, in adults and teenagers, symptoms can show. These symptoms range from fatigue, fever, swollen lymph nodes, enlarged liver, and enlarged spleen. Enlarged spleen is called splenomegaly, and enlarged liver is hepatomegaly. Although it is rare, you can also get a rash all over your body.
Oh, okay, so it must be a pretty common illness, right?
It's actually interesting to note that herpes virus number 4, or mono, affects about 98% of the world's population. That's quite a lot of it. Luckily though, not all the people that are infected actually get symptoms. And you could be in the perfect host range age, but you might not even show symptoms either. And it's important to note that even after you show symptoms, sometimes the virus can come back. That actually happened to me twice.
Whoa. So what makes this virus thing so potent or whatever?
Good thing you asked. There's a couple reasons why the virulence factors of Epstein Barr make it such a good virus. And also, for ease of use, I'm going to start saying EBV from now on. Basically, when the saliva of an infected individual enters your mouth, it attacks two types of cells, B cells and epithelial cells. Now, depending on which type of cell it attacks, it does two different things. If it attacks a B cell, it releases latent proteins, which makes its DNA go inside of the actual host's DNA and just lay dormant. The swollen lymph nodes are usually caused from the B cells inside your throat being inflamed. And when it attacks epithelial tissues, it causes the cell to go into the lytic phase, which, if you know, causes the cell to rupture and spreads the virus throughout the body. And the sore throat is usually from the epithelial tissue going through lysis. Depending on which type of cell it actually infects, can determine whether you get symptoms right away or not. Because if it attacks epithelial tissue, the infection can spread very fast. But this is also how it stays immortalized in your body by releasing those latent proteins inside the B cells.
Oh, that totally makes sense now.
I'm glad you agree, fam squad dog. Although mono isn't really ever fatal, it can affect people with immunodeficiencies. It can sometimes predispose people to leukemia or lymphoma. Now, if you have any sort of immunodeficiency, the mortality rate increases quite a bit. But luckily, if you don't have anything wrong, you should get over it in a couple weeks. But if you're really lucky, you won't even know you have it at all. And then you'll just get your next girlfriend or boyfriend sick. Cool. Or not so cool.
Oh, that totally makes sense now. But like, now that we know like a little bit about it, how do we know if we like have the thing or not?
That's a good question. There's a lot of different tests you can do to test for EBV antibodies. Although it's important to note that sometimes you can get false positives or false negatives. It's really important to get tested right away so that you can make sure you're in that Goldilocks zone of testing. Also, if you've had it before and this is your first time having symptoms, you can sometimes get a false positive. This is saying if you have some sort of other condition that isn't mono. This is due to the virus's latency inside your body. Once again though, it is also important to note that if you are positive for the virus antibodies, it doesn't mean that you're contagious. So I guess you're like free to kiss people even if you're positive for it. But definitely not if you're sick at the moment.
Cool, so I keep doing my thing. Kissing the babes.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, so like, how do you dealio with the like symptoms, yo?
Also, another question. So like I said before, EBV doesn't really have a cure, since it's in your body for the rest of your life. But once you do have mono, the best thing is bed rest until you feel better. And that can be anywhere between 1 to 4 weeks. And that's just symptoms. Although you will be sick for probably like 4 to 6 weeks. But if your swelling is bad enough, you might want to go to your doctor and get some corticosteroids. And of course, your choice of NSAID. And if you're allergic to NSAIDs, you can try sodium naproxen. But really that's it. It's just kind of a management of symptoms rather than a cure-all. And the reason for all of this is because antiviral treatments haven't really shown any promise in helping you with symptoms at all.
Oh, that's cool. At least you like get better from it or whatever. But like, can you like prevent it or whatever, right? You're just really full of good questions.
So it's kind of hard to answer this question. There's no real cure for EBV. Although since there's been a lot of research with HPV and the vaccine for that, a lot of people were hopeful that there'd be a vaccine for EBV as well. Sadly though, there's just been nothing but disappointments. This is because since over 90% of the world's population has it, it's kind of hard to avoid it. It's almost like a herd immunity, but backwards. And since it's so prevalent in adolescence and you're more likely to kiss a lot of people when you're younger, it's hard to avoid. Also, it's really hard to do research on. And this is because the virus only grows in human cells. And human testing isn't really a thing we like nowadays. There are some treatments that help the glycoproteins when you actually have mono, but stopping it in its latent form is kind of null and void. It's also upsetting because the cancers that I mentioned before can be caused from EBV, and there's no real stop to them. And that's just pretty sad. Really, we'll just have to wait it out and see what happens. Until then, it's good to know that at least you only have to worry about the cancers that it can cause. That kind of sounds not good. Let's just hope you don't get it. Really, the only thing you can do is try to not kiss someone with mono. But like I mentioned, if you have it when you're really young, you won't really know you have it. So it's kind of hard to prevent. So now we've covered a lot about our buddy EBV over here. We've talked about some of the signs and symptoms. We've talked about some of the treatments for those symptoms, some of the virulence factors and how they relate to the symptoms, the different populations at risk, and the risk of dying from it. We've also talked about what causes mono and how the virus actually does cause it. We've also talked about transmission between different people and some of the vaccines/treatments that you can get for it, if any. I could go into the protein makeup of it, different chemicals involved, the different receptors it affects, but you don't really want to hear that, do you? So really, I hope this just helped you learn a little bit about EBV and the condition that it causes. Mono.
Yeah, man, I went from like thinking that it's something that messes with your privates to like something that doesn't mess with your privates.
I am glad that you now know a little bit more, random guy that looks a lot like me.
Yeah, man, peace out. Sorry, my rings are dangling.
See ya. And see you. Also, if you want to read a little bit more, you can go to the CDC's website. They have a lot of good information about this and other conditions. But until next time, stay kissing.